Velthar sat in the small room with his hands folded on the table. The walls were gray metal. The light above him buzzed softly. He was old now, much older than when the war had happened. His scales had lost their shine. His eyes carried the weight of too many memories. A young recorder sat across from him, waiting. She wanted to hear his story. Everyone did. The war with the humans had changed everything in the galaxy, but few soldiers from his side had survived to tell what really happened. "I will tell you," Velthar said quietly. "I will tell you what it was like to face humans in combat. But you must understand something first. We did not know. We had no idea what they were." He closed his eyes and let the memories come back. The warship Eternal Dominance had been his home for 6 cycles. It was massive, stretching nearly 2 miles from bow to stern. Its weapons could crack a planet's crust. Its shields could withstand almost anything. Velthar had been proud to serve on it. He had been proud to be Krillian. The Krillian Empire had conquered 17 star systems. Some species surrendered immediately when they saw the fleet arrive. Others fought for a few days before accepting defeat. The Krillians were stronger, faster, and smarter than most species in the galaxy. Their technology was advanced. Their military training was perfect. They had never truly lost a battle. Velthar remembered the day everything changed. He had been in the briefing room with 200 other officers. The room was circular with screens covering every wall. Their commander, High General Zethrock, stood at the center. He was tall even for a Krillian, with dark blue scales and 4 arms crossed behind his back. "We have discovered a new species," the general announced. The screens lit up with images. Velthar leaned forward to look. The creatures were strange. They stood on 2 legs like Krillians, but they had no scales. Their skin was smooth and came in different shades of brown and pink. They had no claws, no natural armor, just soft flesh covering weak bones. They had only 2 eyes, which meant limited vision. They had small teeth, not made for fighting. "They call themselves humans," the general continued. "They come from a planet called Earth. They have spread to 14 colony worlds in the past century. Our scouts have observed them. They are weak." The intelligence officer, a female named Silvara, stepped forward. She touched a control pad and more data appeared. "Humans have thin bones that break easily. Their skin tears from simple cuts. They cannot see in the dark. They cannot hear high frequencies. They move slowly compared to us. Their reaction time is half of ours." Velthar had studied the data carefully. The humans had ships, yes. They had weapons. But their technology was at least 50 years behind Krillian standards. Their largest warship was barely a third the size of the Eternal Dominance. Their weapons used primitive chemical propellants and basic energy cells. "Why are they worth our attention?" someone asked. The general smiled. It was not a kind smile. "They have resources. Their colonies sit on rich mining worlds, rare minerals, elements we need for our expansion, and they are in our path." The Krillian Empire always expanded. It was their way. They moved through the galaxy like a wave, absorbing everything in their path. Any species that resisted was crushed. Any species that surrendered was allowed to live as servants. "We will offer them one chance to surrender," the general said. "If they refuse, we will take what we need by force. The operation will take 3 days. Maybe 4 if they are foolish enough to resist. 3 days. Velthar had believed it. Everyone had believed it. The humans were soft. They were weak. They would see the fleet and understand that resistance was impossible. Velthar's friend Dravik had sat beside him during the briefing. Dravik was a weapons specialist, responsible for managing the plasma cannons on the ship's lower decks. He was younger than Velthar, always eager, always confident. 3 days seems long, Dravik had whispered. "I think they will surrender in 3 hours. Others had laughed quietly. It had seemed like a joke then. A small joke about a small species that would become a small footnote in the Empire's history. The fleet had prepared for 2 weeks. Ships were loaded with troops and supplies. Velthar commanded a unit of 40 soldiers. They were good soldiers, well-trained. They had fought in 3 campaigns before and won every time. They cleaned their weapons and checked their armor. They ran practice drills in the cargo bays. Everything was ready. Velthar remembered the night before they jumped to human space. He had stood in the observation deck looking out at the stars. Dravik had joined him. "Are you nervous?" Dravik had asked. "No," Velthar had answered. It had been true. He had not been nervous. "Are you?" "Not nervous, curious." Dravik had pointed at a distant star. That is where the humans are. That small yellow star. They live on worlds that orbit stars like that. Warm worlds. Soft worlds. Soft worlds make soft species, Velthar had said. It was an old Krillian saying. Species that evolved in comfortable places never learned to be strong. The Krillians came from a harsh world with high gravity and dangerous predators. It had made them tough. It had made them survivors. I wonder what they will do when they see us, Dravik had said. I wonder if they will cry. Velthar had not answered. He had simply watched the stars and thought about the coming victory. The next morning, the fleet jumped. 300 ships entered human space all at once. The warships formed a wall of metal and power. The smaller craft buzzed around them like insects. Everything moved with perfect precision. Their target was a human colony on a planet the humans called Kepler 442b. According to intelligence, it was a mining colony with about 50,000 humans. They dug valuable minerals from the ground and sent them back to Earth. The colony had minimal defenses. A few orbital platforms, maybe some ground vehicles with mounted guns, nothing serious. High General Zethrock sent the standard message. It was translated into the human language and broadcast on all frequencies. People of this world, you are now in territory claimed by the Krillian Empire. Surrender immediately. Power down your weapons. Gather in designated areas. If you comply, you will not be harmed. If you resist, you will be destroyed. You have 1 hour to respond. Velthar had waited in the deployment bay with his unit. They stood in neat rows, weapons ready, armor sealed. The hour passed slowly. He checked his equipment 3 times. Everything was perfect. Then the response came. A human voice speaking their strange language. The translator converted it to Krillian. This is Colony Administrator Taimin. We reject your demands. This world belongs to humanity. Leave now or face the consequences. Silence filled the deployment bay. Then someone laughed. Then everyone laughed. Even Velthar smiled. The consequences? What consequences could these soft creatures possibly threaten? High General Zethrock's voice came over the speakers. He sounded amused. Very well. Begin orbital bombardment. Destroy their defenses. Prepare for ground deployment. The ship shook as the massive cannons fired. Velthar felt the vibrations through his boots. Dravik checked his weapon one more time. Here we go, Dravik said. 3 days. Maybe less, Velthar nodded. He looked at his soldiers. They were ready. The Krillian Empire had never failed. This would be just another easy victory. He had no idea how wrong he was. He had no idea that 3 days would become 3 weeks. He had no idea that years later, he would be sitting in a gray room trying to explain to a young recorder what terror really meant. The war was about to begin. And nothing would ever be the same. The orbital bombardment lasted for 20 minutes. Velthar watched on the display screens as bright lights bloomed across the planet's surface. Each light was an explosion. Each explosion should have destroyed a human defense position. The Krillian weapons were precise. They could hit a target the size of a vehicle from orbit, but something was wrong. The human defenses were still firing back. Small missiles rose from the planet, chasing the Krillian fighters. More missiles than intelligence had predicted. Much more. They have more weapons than we thought, Silvara reported. Her voice was calm, but Velthar heard the confusion in it. Their anti-air systems are more advanced than our scans showed. How much more advanced? The general asked. 50% more coverage. They hid their true capabilities. The bombardment continued for another hour. Eventually, the human defenses went quiet. Smoke rose from dozens of locations across the main settlement. The general gave the order. Deploy ground forces. Secure the mining facilities. Round up the survivors. Velthar and his unit loaded into a dropship. 40 soldiers pressed together in the metal belly of the craft. The ship detached from the Eternal Dominance and began its descent. Velthar gripped his weapon. Around him, his soldiers did the same. They had done this before. It was routine. The dropship shook as it entered the atmosphere. Through the small windows, Velthar saw the colony growing larger. It was built in a valley between 2 mountain ranges. Metal buildings clustered around a central plaza. Mining equipment sat idle on the outskirts. Roads connected everything in a grid pattern. The ship landed hard. The rear ramp dropped and Velthar led his unit out into the human world. The air was thin. His armor compensated automatically, feeding him the right mixture. The gravity was lighter than home. Each step felt slightly strange. The colony looked deserted. Smoke drifted through the streets. Some buildings were damaged from the bombardment. Windows were broken, but Velthar saw no bodies. No crowds of surrendering humans, nothing. Spread out, he ordered. Search every building. Find the humans. His soldiers moved in practice formations. They advanced down the main street with weapons ready. Velthar stayed in the center, watching everything. The silence bothered him. Where were the civilians? Where were the crowds of defeated colonists waiting to be processed? The first shot came from a third-floor window. It hit the soldier next to Velthar in the shoulder joint of his armor. The soldier stumbled back. Before anyone could react, more shots came from different directions. The buildings were not empty. The humans were hiding inside them. Return fire, Velthar shouted. Take cover. His soldiers scattered, diving behind vehicles and walls. They fired back at the windows where the shots came from. Their plasma weapons were powerful. They burned holes in the metal walls. But the humans kept firing. Velthar pressed himself against a wall and tried to understand what was happening. These were not soldiers. The intelligence report said this was a mining colony. Workers, families, civilians. But they were fighting like trained military units. Unit 7, advance on that building, he ordered. 6 soldiers ran forward, covering each other. They reached the door and placed a breaching charge. The explosion was loud. They rushed inside. Velthar heard weapons fire from inside the building. Then screaming, then silence. Only 4 soldiers came back out. 2 had been left behind. They had traps, one soldier reported. His voice shook. The humans put explosives in the hallways, and they kept fighting even when we shot them. The battle lasted for 6 hours. 6 hours to secure one street. The humans defended every building. They used homemade explosives. They fired from hidden positions. When the Krillians entered a building, the humans would retreat to another and start shooting again. Velthar's unit finally cleared the street, but they had lost 8 soldiers. 8 trained warriors killed by mining colonists with basic weapons. It made no sense. More dropships landed. More Krillian soldiers deployed. The general sent 2,000 troops to secure the colony. It should have been overwhelming force. It should have ended the resistance in hours. It did not end. The battle for the colony lasted 3 weeks. 3 weeks of street fighting. The humans refused to surrender. They used the buildings as fortresses. They used the mining tunnels beneath the colony to move unseen. They attacked at night when it was harder for the Krillians to see. They used their own damaged vehicles as bombs. Velthar met the human leader Timon in the 2nd week. The Krillians had surrounded a government building. They offered terms. Surrender and the civilians would be spared. Keep fighting and everyone would die. Timon came out alone. He was not what Velthar expected. The human was small, maybe 5.5 feet tall. He had dark hair and wore simple clothes covered in dirt and blood. His hands were empty, but his eyes were hard. You should surrender, Velthar told him through the translator. Your people are dying. You cannot win. We have more ships, more soldiers, more weapons. This is pointless. Timon looked at him for a long moment. Then he spoke. The translator turned his words into Krillian. You think we are fighting to win. We are not. We are fighting to make you bleed. Every day you stay here, we kill more of your soldiers. Every building you take costs you blood. You want our world? You will pay for every inch of it. Then Timon walked back inside the building. The fighting continued. Velthar could not understand it. No species he had ever fought behaved this way. Rational beings surrendered when defeat was certain. They valued survival. But the humans seemed to value something else. Something Velthar did not have a word for. He saw it again and again. A human woman named Bora was shot in the stomach during a firefight. The wound should have killed her. She should have collapsed. Instead, she kept firing her weapon while crawling behind cover. She dragged another wounded human with her. She did not stop until she reached safety. Then she fell unconscious. The Krillian medics studied her later. They could not believe she had stayed conscious. The pain should have shut down her brain. But humans apparently could push through pain that would stop any other species. Velthar's friend Dravik was hurt in the 3rd week. A human had turned a mining drill into a makeshift rocket launcher. The explosion caught Dravik and 3 others. They survived, but Dravik's lower arm was badly burned. They are insane, Dravik said in the medical bay. They turned a mining tool into a weapon. Who does that? Desperate people, Velthar answered. No, insane people. Desperate people surrender. These humans, they do not know when they are beaten. Velthar had no answer. He was starting to realize that Dravik was right. The humans were different. They did not follow the normal rules of warfare. By the end of the third week, the Krillians controlled most of the colony. But the cost had been terrible. 400 soldiers dead, 600 wounded, dozens of vehicles destroyed, and small groups of humans still fought from the tunnels in the mountains. High General Zethrock declared victory. He said the colony was secured, but everyone knew the truth. The 3-day conquest had taken 3 weeks, and the humans had never truly surrendered. They had simply run out of ammunition and retreated to the wilderness. Velthar stood in the central plaza on the last day. Bodies lay covered with sheets, both Krillian and human. The victory felt hollow. Around him, his soldiers were quiet. No one celebrated. A medical team brought out the human prisoners. There were not many, maybe 200 out of 50,000. The rest had either died or escaped. Velthar watched them. They were wounded, exhausted, covered in dirt and blood, but they were not defeated. They stared at their captors with hatred and defiance. One human, a young male barely old enough to be an adult, spat at a Krillian guard. The guard hit him with a rifle butt. The human fell but got back up immediately. His mouth was bleeding, but he smiled. He actually smiled. Velthar turned away. He did not want to see that smile. It disturbed him in a way he could not explain. The fleet received new orders. The war was expanding. More human colonies were resisting. More Krillian forces were being deployed. What was supposed to be a quick conquest was becoming a real war. Velthar's unit was reassigned. They would be sent to another human world, a place the humans called New Jeju. It was a forest world with smaller settlements. Intelligence said it would be easier than the mining colony. Velthar looked at his soldiers. They had started the campaign with 40. Now they had 32. 8 empty spaces where friends had been. He thought about Dravik's words. The humans did not know when they were beaten. Maybe that was true. Or maybe they knew and simply did not care. Either way, it made them the most dangerous enemy Velthar had ever faced. The dropships lifted off, carrying the survivors away from the conquered colony. Velthar looked out the window at the planet shrinking below. Smoke still rose from a dozen locations. The humans were burning their own facilities rather than let the Krillians use them. Even in defeat, they denied their enemy any advantage. Velthar felt something he had never felt before in a military campaign. He felt fear. Not fear of death. Krillian warriors did not fear death. This was a different fear. A fear that they had started something they could not finish. A fear that these weak, soft humans were stronger than anyone had imagined. The dropship entered space and docked with the Eternal Dominance. The forest world called New Jeju was beautiful. Velthar thought this as his transport flew over the trees. The planet was covered in green. Massive trees grew hundreds of feet tall. Rivers cut through valleys like silver ribbons. Mountains rose in the distance with white peaks. It looked peaceful. That should have been a warning. The war had spread to 6 human worlds now. Nowhere was going as planned. Every colony resisted. Every battle cost more than expected. The 3-day conquest was now entering its 3rd month. The Krillian Empire had committed more ships and more soldiers. But the humans kept fighting. Velthar's unit was now part of counterinsurgency operations. The Krillians controlled the major settlements on New Jeju, but the forest belonged to the humans. Guerrilla fighters hid in the trees. They attacked supply convoys. They sabotaged equipment. Then they vanished like ghosts. "We are hunting shadows," Dravik complained. His burned arm had healed, but it still bothered him. "How do we fight an enemy we cannot see?" Velthar had no answer. The Krillian military trained for direct combat. Large formations, clear objectives, overwhelming force, but the humans refused to fight that way. They used the terrain. They used surprise. They struck and disappeared. The human resistance on New Jeju was led by someone the Krillians only knew as Hyunwoo. No one had seen him. No one knew what he looked like. But his attacks were coordinated and precise. He seemed to know where the Krillians would be before they got there. Velthar's first mission was to patrol a supply route. 20 soldiers and 4 vehicles. The road cut through the forest for 30 miles. It should have been simple. It was not. The attack came in the afternoon. The lead vehicle hit a buried explosive. The blast flipped the vehicle over and killed everyone inside. Before Velthar could react, gunfire came from the trees on both sides. The humans had chosen the perfect ambush spot, a narrow stretch where the vehicles could not turn around. "Return fire," Velthar shouted. His soldiers fired into the forest, but they could not see targets. The humans were hidden behind trees and in ditches. Plasma bolts burned through leaves and branches but hit nothing important. A rocket streaked from the forest and hit the last vehicle. It exploded in a ball of fire. Now they were trapped. 2 vehicles destroyed. The humans had blocked the road ahead with fallen trees. "Into the forest," Velthar ordered. "Pursue them." His soldiers left the vehicles and entered the trees. The forest was dense. Visibility was poor. Velthar tried to keep his unit together, but the thick growth made it difficult. They spread out too much. That was when the real attack began. The humans had traps everywhere. Concealed pits, tripwires connected to explosives, sharpened stakes hidden under leaves. Simple traps, but effective. 3 soldiers fell within the first 10 minutes. 1 broke his leg in a pit, 2 triggered explosives. Then the humans attacked from behind. They had let the Krillians pass through their positions. Now they fired from where the Krillians had just been. It was chaos. Velthar tried to organize a defense, but his soldiers were scattered. The forest made communication difficult. The trees blocked signals. The battle lasted 2 hours. When it ended, the humans had vanished. Velthar counted his losses: 7 soldiers dead, 5 wounded, and they had not killed a single human. Not one. Back at base, Velthar reported to his commander. Commander Thelvan was a veteran of 12 campaigns. But even he looked tired. The humans were wearing them down. "They know our tactics," Thelvan said. "Somehow they predict our movements. We send patrols on random schedules, but they are always waiting." "Maybe they have spies," someone suggested. "We have checked. There are no spies. No, it is something else. They have studied us. They understand how we think." Velthar realized the commander was right. The Krillians were predictable. They followed doctrine. They used the same strategies that had worked for centuries. But the humans had turned that predictability into a weapon. They knew what the Krillians would do before the Krillians did it. The attacks continued. Every day brought new losses. The humans struck at night when Krillian vision was worse. They used darkness like a tool. Velthar's people could see in low light but not complete darkness. The humans somehow moved through the pitch-black forest without making sound. 3 weeks into the deployment, Velthar's unit was ambushed during a night patrol. The humans attacked with perfect coordination. They used no lights, made no sounds before they struck. It was like being attacked by invisible demons. Velthar's unit suffered 40% casualties in a single night. 16 soldiers gone. Dravik was shot in the leg. The wound was not fatal, but it would take weeks to heal. The medical facilities were overwhelmed with wounded. "I want to go home," Dravik said in the hospital tent. "I want to leave this cursed world and never come back." Velthar wanted the same thing. But they were soldiers. They followed orders, and the orders were to keep fighting. The Krillians tried new tactics. They sent scouts ahead. They used drones for surveillance. They varied their patrol routes. Nothing worked. The humans adapted to everything. If the Krillians used drones, the humans hid under thick canopy. If the Krillians sent scouts, the humans avoided them and hit the main force. Then came the incident that changed everything for Velthar. His unit captured a human fighter during a raid. She was wounded and could not escape. Her name was Jiwan. She was young, maybe 20 in human years. She had a bullet wound in her leg and burns on her arms. But she did not cry. She did not beg for mercy. The medics treated her wounds. Velthar questioned her through a translator. He wanted information about Hyunwoo, about the resistance organization, about future attacks. Jiwan smiled at him. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something he did not. "You will lose this war," she said simply. "We have superior numbers, superior technology, superior training." "How can we lose?" "Because you do not understand what you are fighting. You think this is about territory, about resources. It is not. This is about survival. Humans do not surrender. We never have. Check your history files. Look at our wars. Look at what we did to each other. Then understand what we will do to you." Velthar did check the files. What he found disturbed him. Humans had been fighting wars for thousands of years. They fought each other with brutal efficiency. They invented weapons specifically to kill other humans. They developed tactics through endless conflict. War was not foreign to them. It was in their nature. 1 week later, Ji-won was moved to a detention facility. But she had been right about one thing. More were coming. The humans began using special operations units, small teams of highly trained soldiers. They did not attack patrols or convoys. They attacked commanders. They hunted Krillian officers with precision. A team led by soldiers named Sang-ho and Eunji killed 3 commanders in 2 weeks. They struck at night. They used long-range weapons. They escaped before anyone could respond. The Krillian command structure began to fall apart. Then tragedy struck Velthar personally. Dravik had recovered from his leg wound. He had returned to duty. They sent him on what should have been a simple mission: secure a farmstead, check for weapons, return to base. The farmstead was defended by a family, a farmer, his wife, and their son. The son was 15 years old. His name was Minsu. When the Krillian soldiers approached, the family fought. The farmer and his wife were killed quickly. But Minsu kept fighting. He used an old rifle. He hid in the barn. He shot 3 soldiers before they could reach him. One of those soldiers was Dravik. The bullet hit Dravik in the neck, in the weak point where armor plates met. He died within minutes. They killed Minsu eventually. But the damage was done. A 15-year-old human child had killed a trained Krillian warrior. Velthar stood over Dravik's body and felt something break inside him. This was not war. This was madness. Children were fighting. Civilians were fighting. Everyone was fighting. There was no surrender, no negotiation, just endless violence. Velthar began having nightmares. He saw Dravik dying. He saw the young human Minsu with his rifle. He saw Ji-won smile. He woke up at night with his hearts racing. Other soldiers had the same problem. The medics called it combat stress. They gave medicine, but it did not help much. The humans continued their resistance. They never stopped, never slowed down. Intelligence reports said they were building new weapons, taking Krillian technology from destroyed vehicles and learning how it worked. Some human engineers were reverse engineering plasma weapons. They were adapting captured equipment to their needs. 6 months into the campaign, nothing was secure. The Krillians held the settlements, but not the land. The forests belonged to the humans. The mountains belonged to the humans. Even some of the settlements had resistance cells hiding in basements and tunnels. Velthar's unit was down to half strength. Replacements came, but they were young and inexperienced. Many died in their first week. The veterans became hollow-eyed and quiet. They did their duty, but the confidence was gone. They knew they were in a fight they might not win. Commander Thelvan was killed by a sniper. A human marksman named Haewon shot him from 800 meters away, in the head, 1 shot, then disappeared into the forest. The new commander was harsh and angry. He ordered reprisals. Burning farmsteads. Destroying villages suspected of helping the resistance. It did not work. The humans only fought harder. Velthar was no longer the same soldier who had confidently boarded the dropship months ago. He had lost weight. His scales were dull. His hands shook slightly when he cleaned his weapon. Around him, the other survivors looked the same. Haunted, tired, broken. The war had been going for 8 months. The Krillian Empire controlled some territory, but nothing was truly secure. The humans refused to accept defeat. They fought in every forest, every mountain, every city street. The cost in Krillian lives was staggering. Then High Command made a decision. They would commit their elite forces to break the human spirit. They would capture Terra Nova Station, a critical human military installation in orbit around a colony world. If they could take Terra Nova, they could cut off human supply lines and communication networks. It would be the turning point of the war. Velthar was promoted. Too many officers had died. He now commanded a full company. 200 soldiers. Most were replacements, young, inexperienced. But orders were orders. They would participate in the assault on Terra Nova Station. The briefing was thorough. Terra Nova was a large station built from connected modules. It housed 5,000 humans, including military personnel and civilian workers. The Krillian fleet would surround it, cut off all escape routes. Then elite assault teams would board and capture it section by section. This will be difficult, High General Zethrock admitted. The humans will defend it with everything they have. But we will succeed. We must succeed. The Empire is watching. The fleet jumped into the system on a cold morning. 300 warships appeared around Terra Nova Station like a closing fist. The humans immediately began broadcasting requests for reinforcements. But the nearest human fleet was days away. Terra Nova was alone. The Krillians sent the surrender demand. The station commander, a human named Jae-hyun, responded, "We will never surrender. Come and take it if you can." The assault began. Boarding craft launched from the warships. Velthar's company was in the third wave. They would enter after the initial assault team secured entry points. He stood in the boarding craft with his soldiers. Their faces were hidden behind helmets, but he could feel their fear. The craft latched onto the station's hull. Cutting torches burned through the metal. Alarms wailed. Then they were inside. The humans were waiting. They had fortified the corridors. Every corner was a killing zone. Every doorway was trapped. The Krillian soldiers advanced slowly, taking heavy casualties. Velthar pushed forward with his company. The fighting was brutal. Close quarters. No room to maneuver. The battle lasted for 43 days. 43 days of continuous fighting. The Krillians captured sections of the station only to lose them when the humans counterattacked. Bodies floated in the corridors. Both human and Krillian. The air recycling systems could not keep up. The smell of death was everywhere. Velthar's company was reduced to 70 soldiers by the second week. They held a junction near the station's engineering section. The humans attacked them 6 times a day. Every attack was fierce. The humans fought with knives when they ran out of bullets. They used tools as weapons. They refused to retreat even when surrounded. On day 20, Velthar's forces finally cornered the human commander. Jae-hyun had retreated to the command center with the last 100 defenders. The Krillians surrounded them. There was no escape. High General Zethrock ordered a ceasefire. He wanted to offer terms one last time. Velthar was chosen to deliver the message. He approached the command center with a white flag. The doors opened. Inside, he saw the human defenders. They were exhausted, wounded. Some were barely standing, but their weapons were ready. Jae-hyun stepped forward. He was a tall human with short black hair. His uniform was torn and stained. He had a bandage around his head, but his eyes were clear and hard. "We offer terms," Velthar said through the translator. "Surrender now. Your people will be treated fairly. The wounded will receive medical care. This can end peacefully." Jae-hyun studied him for a long moment. Then he spoke. "Why do you think we will surrender? You have been fighting humans for months. Have we ever surrendered? You have no choice. You are trapped. Your supplies are gone. Your reinforcements are not coming. Further resistance is pointless. Pointless to you, not to us." Jae-hyun gestured to his defenders. "These people know they might die today. They accepted that weeks ago. But they also know that every hour we hold this station, we give our fleets time to regroup. Every Krillian soldier we kill here is one less soldier attacking our colonies. So we will keep fighting, until the last of us falls." Velthar felt a chill. He had heard these words before in different forms. From Taimin, from Ji-won. The humans all said the same thing. They would rather die than surrender. "I do not understand your people," Velthar admitted. "Death is not preferable to life. Surrender is not shameful when defeat is certain. Why do you value pride over survival?" Jae-hyun smiled sadly. "It is not about pride. It is about who we are. Let me teach you something about humans. For 10,000 years we fought each other. Terrible wars. Brutal wars. We almost destroyed ourselves many times. Do you know what we learned from those wars?" Velthar shook his head. "We learned that nothing worth having comes without sacrifice. We learned that freedom must be defended. We learned that some things are worth dying for. Your empire sees us as soft, weak. But we have been killing each other for millennia. We know war better than you ever will. And now you have given us a common enemy. You have united us. You should have left us alone." The words hung in the air. Velthar had no response. He returned to his lines. The general rejected any further negotiations. The assault on the command center would proceed, but before the assault could begin, everything changed. Long-range sensors detected a fleet approaching. A human fleet. But it was much larger than intelligence predicted. 200 ships. They had come from multiple colonies and combined into a single force. The commander was an admiral named Soo-jin. She had rallied every defensive ship she could find. Colony defense forces, mining ships converted to warships, civilian vessels armed with improvised weapons. It should not have been a match for the Krillian fleet. But the humans had learned Krillian tactics. They had studied captured equipment. They knew how Krillian ships fought. The space battle was chaos. The humans did not fight with traditional formations. They swarmed. Small fast ships attacked from multiple angles. They targeted Krillian engines and weapons systems. They rammed ships when they ran out of ammunition. It was suicide tactics, but it worked. The Eternal Dominance took heavy damage. 3 other command ships were destroyed. The Krillian fleet began to break apart. High General Zethrock ordered a retreat. They would regroup and return with more forces. But the retreat order came too late for the boarding teams. Velthar and thousands of other Krillian soldiers were still on Terra Nova Station. They were trapped. The human defenders in the command center knew this. They had heard the news. Their fleet had arrived. Now the Krillians were the ones who were surrounded. Jae-Hyun's voice came over the station's speakers. Krillian forces, your fleet has abandoned you. Surrender now. We will show you the same mercy you showed our people. Fighting broke out across the station. Not organized combat. Panic. Confusion. Krillian soldiers tried to reach the boarding craft, but the humans had sealed them off. Some Krillians surrendered. Others kept fighting. Velthar tried to keep his company together. They fought their way toward an escape pod bay. The corridors were hell. Humans attacked from everywhere. His soldiers fell one by one. Then something unexpected happened. A human marine named Dong-hyun found Velthar pinned down by crossfire. Instead of killing him, Dong-hyun threw a grenade at the Krillian soldiers who were firing. Then he grabbed Velthar and pulled him to safety. Why? Velthar asked. Prisoners are worth more than corpses, Dong-hyun said. We need information. You are an officer. You will talk or you will not. Either way, you are more useful alive. Velthar was taken prisoner along with 30 others from his company. The rest were dead. The battle for Terra Nova Station ended on day 43. The humans had won. Against overwhelming odds, they had won. In the detention area, Velthar sat with other captured officers. They were treated decently, given food and water, medical care for the wounded, but they were defeated. The first major Krillian defeat in Imperial history. The news spread across the galaxy. The Krillian Empire, undefeated for 3 centuries, had been forced to retreat. The humans had won a major battle. More importantly, they had captured hundreds of prisoners and dozens of intact Krillian ships and equipment. Velthar learned later that human engineers studied everything. They reverse-engineered Krillian technology at an incredible pace. Within months, human ships had shields nearly as good as Krillian ones. Human weapons began matching Krillian firepower. But more devastating than the technology loss was the psychological impact. The Empire had believed they were invincible. Terra Nova proved they were not. The humans had fought for 43 days in an impossible situation and won. That knowledge spread through the Krillian military like a disease. Velthar spent 3 months as a prisoner. He was treated fairly, but he watched his captors carefully. He saw how humans worked together, how they adapted, how they learned from their mistakes. Velthar opened his eyes. The gray room came back into focus. The young recorder sat across from him, her device still recording. She had not interrupted once during his long testimony. Now she waited for him to finish. That is most of the story, Velthar said quietly. The parts worth telling. But the war continued after Terra Nova, the recorder said. For another year, Velthar nodded slowly. The memories of that final year were painful. Yes, it continued. But the outcome was already decided. We just did not want to admit it. After Terra Nova, the war had changed completely. The humans went on the offensive. Their fleet, small but growing, attacked Krillian positions. They used hit-and-run tactics learned from their guerrilla fighters. They struck supply lines. They destroyed shipyards. They coordinated attacks across multiple systems simultaneously. The Krillian Empire tried to respond. They sent more ships, more soldiers, but the troops were demoralized. Everyone had heard about Terra Nova. Everyone knew humans did not surrender. Fighting them meant dying slowly, one battle at a time. Velthar had been stationed on a defense platform orbiting a mining world. For 6 months, nothing happened. Then the humans attacked. The battle lasted 2 days. The Krillian defenders fought hard, but the humans were relentless. They captured the platform and took more prisoners. 3 more major battles followed. The Empire lost all 3. The human Admiral Su-jin proved to be a brilliant strategist. She used Krillian predictability against them, Every time the Empire tried a new strategy, the humans adapted within days. It was like fighting an enemy that learned faster than you could teach. The final battle happened near a Krillian colony world. The Empire gathered its remaining fleet for one last push. They would crush the human forces and reclaim momentum. High General Zethrock personally commanded the operation. It was a disaster. The humans had allied with two other species the Krillians had previously conquered. Those species saw the humans winning and joined their side. The combined fleet outnumbered the Krillians. The battle was over in 6 hours. The Eternal Dominance was destroyed. High General Zethrock died on his bridge. After that defeat, the Krillian Empire had no choice. They sued for peace. The humans remarkably accepted. They could have pressed their advantage. They could have invaded Krillian space, but they chose peace. The armistice was signed on a neutral station. Velthar watched it on a screen from a military hospital where he was recovering from his wounds. He saw human and Krillian representatives standing together, shaking hands, a formal gesture of peace. The Empire's government collapsed within weeks. The Emperor was overthrown by his own people. The military class was blamed for the disaster. Many officers committed ritual suicide rather than face disgrace. The Empire fractured into smaller states. Some wanted revenge. Others wanted to forget the war ever happened. Velthar chose exile. He could not return to his home world. Too many memories. Too much shame. He took a transport to the neutral stations that existed on the borders of known space, places where refugees and survivors gathered. That was 15 years ago. Now Velthar lived quietly. He worked as a translator. He helped refugees from various conflicts. He tried to forget the war, but it never truly left him. At night, he still dreamed of Dravik, of the young human Minsu, of the 43 days on Terra Nova Station. What was the worst part? The recorder asked. The fighting? The defeats? Velthar considered the question. No, the worst part came after. The humans in peace were more terrifying than the humans in war. The recorder looked confused. Velthar explained. After the war, human diplomats proved to be as effective as their soldiers. They negotiated treaties that were firm but fair. They demanded the return of all conquered territories. They demanded reparations. But they did not demand revenge. They protected Krillian civilians. They ensured that the punishment fell on the military leadership, not the common people. A human ambassador named Ye Jin had drafted most of the peace terms. Velthar met her once at a refugee conference. She was small and soft-spoken, nothing like the warriors he had fought. But she had the same determination in her eyes, the same refusal to accept anything less than what was right. Why did you not destroy us? Velthar had asked her. You had the power. You had the justification. We invaded your worlds, killed your people. Why show mercy? Yejin had looked at him with sad eyes. Because destroying you would make us no better than you were. We fought to defend ourselves, not to become conquerors. There is a difference. That difference was something Velthar still struggled to understand. The Empire would have shown no mercy, but the humans did. They sent aid to damaged Krillian colonies. Human doctors, including one named Shung Ho, worked in Krillian hospitals. They treated wounded soldiers and civilians alike. Velthar had volunteered at a refugee camp 3 years after the war. There he worked alongside former enemies. A human marine captain named Heywan helped distribute supplies. She had fought on Terra Nova. She had killed Krillians in combat, but now she carried food to Krillian children without any hatred in her actions. How do you do it? Velthar had asked her. How do you not hate us? Heywan had shrugged. Hate takes energy. We need that energy for building, for healing. The war is over, we won. Now we move forward, moving forward. Humans were good at that. They did not dwell on the past like Krillians did. They acknowledged it, learned from it, then kept going. It was another way they were stronger. The recorder checked her device. Is there anything else you want to say? Any message for those who will hear this testimony? Velthar thought carefully. He wanted to get this right. This might be the last time he told his story. He was old now. His health was failing. Soon he would join Dravik and all the others who had fallen. I tell this tale not to glorify war, Velthar began. War is terrible. It destroys everything it touches. I tell this tale as a warning to any species who might think humans are weak, who might think they are easy to conquer, who might think they can be intimidated or dominated. He paused, gathering his thoughts. Humans are not the strongest species physically. They are not the smartest. They do not have the best technology or the largest numbers. But they have something else. Something more dangerous than any weapon. What is that? The recorder asked. Will. Pure, stubborn, relentless will. Humans do not quit. They do not surrender. Even when losing. Even when dying. They keep fighting. They adapt. They learn. They sacrifice everything for what they believe in. That makes them more dangerous than any species in the galaxy. Velthar stood up slowly. His joints ached. The recorder stood as well, respectful. We fought humans because we thought they were weak. We learned too late that they were the opposite. They were strong in ways we could never be. He walked to the room's small window. Outside, the neutral station bustled with life. Humans, Krillians, and dozens of other species moved through the corridors. Trading, talking, living together. The war seemed like ancient history sometimes, but for those who fought it, the memories remained fresh. I once knew a human soldier named Wu Jin, Velthar said, still looking out the window. We met after the war at a memorial ceremony. He told me something I will never forget. He said, "We don't want to fight. We never wanted to fight, but if you make us fight, we will make you regret it." That is the human philosophy in one sentence, and did you regret it? The recorder asked. The war? Every day, Velthar answered. I regret the friends I lost, the soldiers under my command who died for nothing, the humans we killed who were only defending their homes. I regret all of it. The Empire should have left humanity alone, but we did not, and we paid the price. The recorder finished her recording. She thanked Velthar for his time. She said his testimony would be added to the Galactic Archive. Future generations would learn from it, would understand what happened during the Human-Krillian War. After she left, Velthar sat alone in the gray room. Tomorrow he would go to the Memorial Plaza. It was located in the center of the station, a place where names were carved into stone, both human and Krillian names, side by side, the dead from both species resting together in memory. He would place flowers there. One at the marker for Dravik, his friend who joked about easy conquests. One at the marker for the young human Minsu who killed him. Both were victims of the same war. Both deserved to be remembered. Velthar had learned something important during his years of exile, something the Empire had never understood. Humans were not just fighters. They were also healers, builders, teachers. They could be terrible in war, but they were beautiful in peace. They forgave without forgetting. They helped without demanding gratitude. They built bridges instead of walls. That was the real terror of facing humans in combat, not their weapons or tactics, not even their refusal to surrender. The real terror was knowing that they were better than you, that they had every reason to become monsters after the war but chose not to, that they showed mercy when you would have shown none. Velthar thought about all the humans he had met. Taemin and his defiance, Bora and her courage, Hyunwoo and his tactical genius, Jae-hyun and his determination, Soo-jin and her strategic brilliance, Ye-jin and her fair justice, Sung-ho and his compassion, Hae-won and her forgiveness, Woo-jin and his wisdom. Every one of them had been stronger than any Krillian he had known.